Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez and this is your JIS News for Friday, February 11. Government has proposed to spend $912 billion during the 2022-2023 financial year, which begins on April 1. The budget, which represents a 2.1% increase over the previous year, was tabled in Parliament yesterday by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark. It comprises $539.5 billion for non-debt or recurring expenses, $65.1 billion in capital spending, and $307.5 billion for debt servicing. Minister Clark says while capital expenditure was significantly curtailed in 2020 due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, this budget is geared at moving the country from crisis to sustainable growth.
With the economic recovery underway, we're seeking to boost capital investment in fiscal year 22-23 by 20%, which will still, however, lead to a total that's lower than pre-pandemic levels. And we do this in order to ensure that the growth momentum is maintained. And this represents a 0.2 percentage point increase as a percentage of GDP.
The estimates of expenditure will now go before the Standing Finance Committee of Parliament and will be presented in greater detail when the Finance Minister opens the budget debate on March 8. Ministries with increases include Finance, which has the largest top-up of $4.8 billion. The Agriculture and Fisheries budget has increased by $2.9 billion, Health and Wellness by $2.68 billion, and Economic Growth and Job Creation by $1.4 billion. The budget for education was increased by $543 million, while an additional $426 million is earmarked for science, energy, and technology. There was, however, a $1 billion decline for the Ministry of National Security. Government has delivered on a promise to introduce stronger legislation to crack down on the illicit trade, manufacture, stockpiling, possession, and use of illegal guns. A bill to repeal and replace the current Firearms Act was tabled in Parliament by National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang yesterday. The Firearms Prohibition, Restriction and Regulation Act 2022 is now going to a joint select committee of Parliament, where members will review the proposed harsher penalties and regulations for illegal firearms.
The framework is now more robust and comprises, this bill introduces a much more robust framework and comprises of two regimes. One to treat with prohibited weapons and the other dealing with firearms duly registered by the authorities. The illegal guns that have not been subject to the local regulatory regime are now considered prohibited firearms and will be treated with stronger penalties and with a different regime.
The bill also empowers the National Security Minister to declare a firearms amnesty by order, subject to affirmative resolution.
The government is committed to a timely and bipartisan review of this bill towards its approval and the implementation.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced changes to the daily curfew and attendance capacity for worship services, while other COVID-19 protocols remain unchanged. From February 11 to 25, the national curfew will be from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. the following morning. The Prime Minister says this and other changes are in response to data showing rapid improvement in our COVID-19 indicators since the recorded peak at the start of the year.
Our management of the pandemic has always been evidence-based, data-driven, proportionate, and situationally appropriate. The changes to the measures I have announced today represent a continuation of the gradual and controlled process of getting our economy back to full productive capacity. We will continue this process to give all Jamaicans the opportunity to earn their livelihoods while protecting their health.
Mr. Holness was making a statement to the House of Representatives yesterday. He says the current maximum of 100 persons being allowed to physically attend worship services is being replaced with a capacity limit that is determined based on the size of the place of worship divided by 36 square feet. All other measures will remain unchanged. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the two-party dialogue between the government and opposition, the Vale Royal Talks, will resume before the end of this month. The Vale Royal Talks are a mechanism for members of the two major political parties to have bipartisan discussions on critical issues of national importance. Prime Minister Holness says government remains committed to a bipartisan approach for finding solutions to Jamaica's common social problems. He says the Vale Royal property on Montrose Road in St. Andrew is not able to accommodate the discussions in its current condition, but reasons that various institutions, including the universities and the church, could facilitate these important meetings.
And so the Bay Royal Talk in name will be held right across venues across Jamaica. And we will then, therefore, begin the process, opposition and government, in reviewing our social and political institutions that are in need of a rethink.
Mr. Holness was speaking at the Prime Minister's lunch for parliamentarians held yesterday on the lawns of Jamaica House. It followed the ceremonial opening of Parliament earlier in the day. And finally, government will be providing the required funding to clean up the recent flood-damaged areas in St. Mary, Portland and St. Anne. Minister of Local Government and Rural Development Desmond McKenzie made the announcement during a tour of the affected parishes on Wednesday. He was on the tour with Agriculture Minister Pernell Charles Jr. and Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Matthew Samuda. Minister McKenzie says the administration is aware of the disruption that the rains have caused in these parishes, and their response will continue to reflect a joined-up government approach. That has started with the Ministry of Labour and Social Security providing relief supplies to affected persons.
I have spoken to the mayor and I've given the mayor the assurance that whatever funding is required for the cleanup exercise, that is to be undertaken. And the mayor have already started, and with what we are going to be providing for him will give us the opportunity to bring back some semblance to the town.
The tour party made stops in the Fellowship Division in Portland, Port Maria in St. Mary Central, and Jacks River in St. Mary Western, as well as the Bamboo and Sturgetown divisions in St. Anne Northwestern. The Local Government and Rural Development Minister says his team will be back in St. Mary next week for an additional 3-day tour to further devise targeted interventions to help the affected sectors in the parish. And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Thanks for watching.